Hi, today's In the Hoop project is this little credit card size zippered bag. It's perfect for credit cards, IDs, cash. It'll fit nicely inside of your larger zippered bags. You can stitch it plain. You can add some personalization to the front of it. With this one, I actually used an old pair of jeans and I took the pocket off the back of the jeans and used that for the back of my bag to give it a little decoration. So there's a lot of ways you can dress up this design, including a little zipper pull there to dress it up some more. So with most designs, I always start by printing out the layout guide and instructions. The layout guide is going to show you what's being stitched in each run, and I've added some notes so you know what's going on, as well as what you need to do for each run. This package will include instructions, which will give you an overview, the materials you need, some tips, and then a detailed instructions on what to do in each run. So for the materials, we'll start with some of our accessories. You'll need some 505 spray. I use that on most of the layers to help secure the fabric in place. I've got a zipper, which is about 2 inches larger than my bag. You want this so that the ends of the zipper and the zipper pull will be outside of the stitch area. They break your needle otherwise. You also want to make sure that you're using a nylon zipper. A metal zipper will break your needle. I have a piece of ribbon that I'll use for the little loop on the side of the bag, and a skinnier piece of ribbon that I will use to add the zipper pull. I've got a piece of tearaway stabilizer already in my hoop. You can use regular plain tearaway. And I've got my materials over on the ironing board. So for fabric, I've got a 5.5 by 2.5 piece of fabric, which I've already creased. I've got a 5.5 by 6.5 for the front bottom area, which I will add the crease in one moment. This is for the front top of the bag. So this is the piece that goes there, and this will form for the bottom. For the back of the bag, I've got a 5.5 by 4.5. I've got one piece for the lining and a second piece for the actual back of the bag. Since this fabric has a design on it, I've cut the fabric a little bit larger. That gives me a little more working room for positioning that design. So to crease the fabric, it's pretty easy. You just want to take your fabric, fold it in half, and press lightly. And if your crease is where you want it, look at it, make sure everything looks good. Then take and give it a little spritz. If you're having something with a pattern, you might need to realign it a little. And then I'm just going to press, and I'm actually going to use a little pressure, and I'm going to hold it for about 10 seconds, and that's going to give me a nice crease. If your fabric had a pattern, you might have needed to reposition where that crease was a touch. So now that we've pressed that, now you can see we've got a nice firm crisp crease that will give us a nice edge. That's what provides the edge along this folded edge here along the zipper. So let's go over to our machine. I've already loaded my threads that I want. And the one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the edit mode here. With single needles, you don't need to worry about this, but with the multi needles, it's nice to go in and add a stop and set the colors that I want to stitch with. So I've done that. I'll go to edit in, and we're ready to start sewing. The first run is going to be a placement run to show me where the zipper goes. The design is through stitching. It has stitched an open box, and we're going to take this over to our work surface, and we're going to place our zipper. We're going to put it so that the zipper pull end is at the open end of the box. And we're simply going to set that there, and we're going to take a couple pieces of tape. Now, this is the one time you do not want to use 505 spray. If you put 505 spray on the back of your zipper, it will not unzip nicely anymore. So I'm going to take a little bit of tape, and I'm going to put some tape on this end. And I'm going to take another piece of tape, and I'm going to put some tape across the top of the zipper. And just to keep it from moving while it's being stitched, I'm going to take a piece of tape and I'm going to put it right on the very edge there, and I'll do another little piece on the bottom edge. You want to tape If you notice, I've got it right on the edge because the line's going to stitch about there. So we'll put this back in our machine. Make sure you note the orientation. My hoop only has one screw on it, so I always keep the screw to the front. You could also put a little piece of tape on the side of your hoop to help you remember the orientation. We'll pop that back in, and this will stitch the zipper in place. The zipper's been stitched in place. We're going to take that tape off now just so it's not in the way. Oops, careful when you take your tape off. Now I'm going to put the top section, I just put some 505 on the one side, and I'm just going to center this right over the stitches, and I'm going to put that right along the zipper. So just, as I said, center it over the stitches and just place that right up next to the zipper. Now if you put it right like that, your zipper is going to show. If you want your zipper to be covered, then just kind of position it so that it's actually like that over about, oops, and I've gotten a little bit to the one side. Let me just go down a hair. There we go. I'm going to position it so it's actually kind of almost just overlapping the zipper a hair. Now we'll put this back in the machine and we'll stitch that in place, and then we'll add our front lower fabric. So that portion of the bag has been stitched in place. We've now got our front lower fabric, which again I put a little 505 on, and we're just going to line that up nice and even there. And set that down. Put this back in our machine. Now it's going to stitch this in place. The front fabric has been stitched in place. The next step is I've actually inserted some text to be put on this bag. So I've put some text on the bag. If you weren't adding the text, if you had text of your own you wanted to add to the design and you don't have software, you could stop this design, go out into your machine, pull up the text that you want to add, and then when you resume the design, you would just go into your needle plus minus button and just advance by color until you got back to that next run. So I'm going to stitch this text in place, and then we will add the loop. Oops. So my text is finished stitching. The next thing is to add the pull if desired, or I'm sorry, the strap is desired. I have about 12 inches here. Just want to make sure that you know your hand will be able to fit in and out of the loop, or if you just want a small little loop like that, you know, that length. So I'm going to take, and I've used a little bit of 505 to tack the two ends together, and I'm just going to put this right over, oops, real important, before you put this in, you want to do two things. You want to take your zipper, and you want to just open your zipper a little, because if you don't do that now, you're going to be ruined. And the other thing that I like to do is I just take and poke a little bit of a hole right there, because that's going to make it easier when I'm done to finish it off. So make sure you open your zipper, then put your loop right there, just like that. And we're going to stitch a little line to secure that in place. So the loop has been stitched in place. We can now add our lining in our back. I want to do one more thing before I do that, and that's just to bundle this up just a little bit, because otherwise it's going to get caught somewhere or stuck somewhere. And so I'm just going to take a little piece of tape, make sure I'm taping inside of that line there and keeping that secure. So once that tape is in place, you can put your back down, and you're going to put the good side of your back facing the design, because when you turn it all inside out, this will become the outside. So set that down and kind of position that where you want it over those lines. So I'm trying to I can kind of look at those lines there. You can see the lines there, and you can see the stitch lines there. So that's kind of going to be where it's stitched. So maybe just a hair more. I think I've got that about centered there. So just lift up your edges a little bit, see where things are, and check that you got it where you want it. And then I'm going to take my lining fabric, and I'm going to put, this is the bad side, the less shiny side, put that down over this. Just lift things up a little bit, make sure I've got it positioned correct. So this is all together now. So I've got my back fabric, good side facing the front fabric, lining good side facing me. And we will put this back in the hoop, and it's going to stitch a run around everything to hold it in place, and then it's going to do some over stitching to secure the edges so that they don't ravel. So once the design has stitched the edges, you can see it does this oval stitching, which is going to secure those and that will prevent raveling of the seam that's inside the bag. This is all finished stitching. Thank you, sweetheart. So we can take this over. We can pop this out of the hoop. Rip away the stabilizer. Now we're going to need to get the stabilizer off, especially from that center area there. So that's why that little hole I punched earlier is helpful for getting in there to rip this off. And now you will find that on your top and bottom section, that placement thread for the zipper, you're going to need to make a little cut just where that is. That's just from that placement thread from the zipper again. So just cut him, and then you can rip the rest of the stabilizer off. And on this section up here as well, we'll have another one of those placement threads that we need to cut. That one broke nice. Whoops. So again, that other piece of the placement thread, just give him a trim there. Oops, I got 505 on my fingers. So that's there. And now what we need to do is just trim these edges. So you can see where it's stitched, and you've got that nice little bit of over stitching there. Like I said, that'll prevent raveling. So we're just going to cut right along that edge. You don't want to cut the actual edge of the thread, but just cut right along there. You'll cut right through your zipper. And once we're finished cutting, we'll turn this and our bag will be all done. There's no additional stitching required to finish this bag. It stitches completely in the hoop. So we take our bag. So that's just that piece of tape we'd used on there before. We can get rid of him. And I like to use either a screwdriver or the blunt end from my seam ripper. You can also use a pair of chopsticks, whatever you have handy, to push the corners out in that design. So I'm just going to take this and just push out those corners once I get it turned. And we'll push that corner out, and we'll just put this down in there, and we can push that corner out and get this last corner pushed out. And we've got a little bag. I'm going to do one more thing, and that is I want to add a zipper pull. Now, one of the things I've done which I think make it easier, if you notice I've cut this on a bit of an angle, so you've got a nice sharp point there. So I'm just going to take that, and then you can tuck those points right through the little hole in the zipper and grab them and pull them through, and then tuck them back through that loop. And voila, we've got our zipper pull ready to go. Now I probably will give this a quick pressing. And our credit card purse is ready to use. So this works perfect as a change purse, credit cards, cash, driver's license. So I've done this one kind of two-tone with a little different on the back and the front. Though the lining on it, whoops, I'll open it back up. The lining I did with the silky blue there. So this is all ready to go. I can put it in the larger purse I made yesterday. We hope you've enjoyed today's In the Hoop project. If so, please like this channel and subscribe to this channel for more In the Hoop projects. Happy stitching!